Vikings eating skulls, giant Viking turds, and the Viking Navy. Today we're talking about the unusual and cool facts about Vikings. Let's go! Vikings had really itchy bums. Do you know how we know that? Well, I'm going to explain. In 1972 in York, or as the Vikings call it, Jorvik, builders were building a new Lloyd's Bank, and underneath the pavement in front, they found a 20 centimetre long, 5 centimetre wide, 1200-year-old Viking poo, or coprolite, to give it its fancy scientific name. Now, inside that poo, yep, it was somebody's job to go digging around. They found things that they were expecting, like traces of grains showing the Vikings ate porridge and ate a lot of natural plants, which we know. But they also found thousands of more worm eggs. Yeah, Vikings riddled with worms. All those Vikings, all the cliches that you can think of them running around with their swords and they were properly itchy bums. They had worms. Vikings loved honey. We know that they liked a little bit of honey on their porridge, much like you or your gran might like in the morning. Honey was so important to Vikings that beehives were just sort of common household items. We don't think they had them in the houses, but it was really, really normal for each household to have their own bees. You see, honey is really useful for preserving food. It doesn't just make things sweeter, it makes them last longer. And that's why honey is so important to Vikings. In 1066, King Harold lost to the Normans, you know that. You probably also know that part of the reason he lost is he was knackered. Him and his men were knackered. See, they'd already been up north fighting the Vikings, and they had to rush down south and fight the Normans. But he's not the only Saxon king who had that problem. In 885, or 886, part of the problem with Saxon chronicles, they're a little bit unreliable, King Alfred the Great, you might have heard of him, was having a spot of bother in Rochester. It was the Vikings. The Vikings had been sieging the town. Alfred went down, sorted them out, victory, brilliant. The next battle took place here, on the River Stour. It was between the Saxons and the Vikings again. It was a sea battle. You might not think of Saxons and Vikings having sea battles, but just here, there was a big one. This is the River Old. Over there is Harwich International Port. Over there is Felixstowe International Port, and we're filming in Shotley. In 885, 12 to 15 Viking ships turned up here. We say 12 to 15 because, as I said a minute ago, records are a little sketchy. Alfred came to meet them. There was a sea battle. Alfred and his forces won. So they claimed the ships, slaughtered all the Vikings. Now, Alfred might have thought, pat on the back, job well done, I can rest for now. Sadly, Alfred was wrong. As they were leaving, on the way home, they had another battle, and they lost that one. So that's two Saxon kings who lost important battles because they were just doing two battles in one day. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun, does it? In early Viking days, you could be punished if your household did not make beer. At certain times of year, beer was very sort of ritualistic, and if you didn't make beer, you weren't contributing and you could be punished. Do you like my hat? How would you fancy eating nothing but dried fish for days? That's what the Vikings did. They called it stockfish. Some parts of Norway, most notably the north, this was a staple for long journeys. It's air-dried cod. Sitting on the boat, had enough of rowing, no wind, have a chew on some bits of cod. What do you think to that? Tasty? Could you eat that for days? Imagine their breath stuck with it, didn't it? If little Miss Muffet was a Viking, she probably would have had bits of fish and bits of meat in with her curds and whey. But she would also have had terrible gastric problems like acid reflux and heartburn. And this is because the Vikings used whey to preserve their food. They'd dry it, sometimes smoke it, sometimes salt it, and almost always put it in whey, which is a sort of a byproduct of dairy. The problem with using whey to preserve your food is it's very acidic. That makes it good for storing the food, might not make it quite so good for your body. All that acid burbling around in your own stomach acid. Also, it's very damaging for your teeth. Let's talk about Viking dentistry. You see, the Vikings had a huge problem with their teeth, but they did have some solutions. The problem is bread-based. They use basalt stones to grind grain to make bread. Basalt stones, not ideal for this. Little tiny bits break off like all the time. So Viking bread was kind of gritty. So when you ate it, knock away at your teeth. The same way it grinds up grain, grind up your teeth. So you might think, Viking dentists, Viking teeth must have been awful. And yeah, they were. We found skeletal remains of Vikings, just terrible, terrible teeth. But what's really interesting is that Viking remains have also been found that show that some Vikings had fillings. These might have been the people who lived longer or had more money or higher status within a tribe. But they would drill into the teeth and fill it with something. Maybe basalt stone. Maybe just pull all your teeth out and replace it with a load of basalt stones. Then, you know, cut one link out of the process. Careful, that's a poo by the look of it. Can you imagine if a friend invited you to a party and you couldn't make it? They rang you up and said, well, you're going to have to send us some food. This is what happened in Viking times. If you're invited to a feast and you didn't attend, you're in trouble. You would still have to send some food after the event to make up for your loss, their loss, your absence. You see, there's a lot of rituals in Viking society around food, and we found evidence in Icelandic writings that if you just didn't bother turning up, or you were ill or whatever and couldn't attend a communal feast, you had to send food to make good your loss. In Viking society, you had to be pretty big and special to eat a skull. What am I talking about? Well, that's the Orwell Bridge. We're on the River Orwell near Ipswich in Suffolk, one of the first recorded landings of the Vikings. In Viking society, the type of food you got to eat was denoted by your status. If you're a lowly person, you'd get one type of food. If you're sort of mid-tier Viking, you'd get another type. If you were the king, you'd get what was called the king's cut. And in the case of animals, the king's cut was, what do you think? Do you think it's the sirloin steak? Do you think it's the nice bits? No. The king's cut for Vikings was the skull. Oh, I didn't hold up. Oh yeah, chocolate milk and that poo from the first clip. Did you like that? Would you like more? Please like and subscribe. It only takes a second. It makes a huge difference. Which fact did you like the most? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you'd like to learn about next. Until the next time. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Ooh, ooh.